Okay, let's go over the anatomical terms for some common movements of the ankles. So the first two movements are plantarflexion and dorsiflexion. So plantarflexion is if I lift the foot up and I move the top of the foot away from the shin. That's plantarflexion. And if the top of the foot moves towards the shin, that's dorsiflexion. Plantarflexion and dorsiflexion. And the muscles that do these two movements obviously are different. So when I point the foot into plantarflexion, it's the muscles on the bottom of the foot and the calf that are contracting. And then when I do dorsiflexion, pulling the top of the foot towards the shin, it's the top of the foot and muscles on the shin that are doing that movement, and the muscles on the back get more lengthened. And the way that looks if you're standing, weight bearing, plantarflexion is lifting the heels. And then dorsiflexion would be lifting the ball of the foot up off the floor. Plantarflexion, dorsiflexion. Now we'll go over pronation and supination. We'll do supination first. So supination is a movement of the ankle where you roll towards the outer edges of the feet and you lift the inner edges. That's supination. And then pronation is the opposite of that. So you roll towards the inner edges of the feet and you lift the outer edges. Supination, roll to the outer edges. And pronation, roll to the inner edges, lift the outer edges. Everybody's different. Some people have really extreme range of motion in supination or pronation. People could be limited in both directions. Same thing with the plantarflexion and dorsiflexion. Everybody's different. And then the combination of all of these movements is basically when you circle the ankle. So if I lift one foot, you point it, and then you kind of come through supination, back through dorsiflexion and plantarflexion. So if you really do a focused circle, you go through all of those movements. And the last thing I'll talk about here is the toes, because the toes usually move, with the ankle, but you can move the toes separately. So when I lift the toes up off the floor like that, balls of the feet stay down, my ankles didn't move, but I pulled my toes towards the top of the foot. That's called the extension of the toes. And now I'll relax them back to neutral. Now if I set the heel down and my ball of the foot's up and I move the toes forward without moving my ankle, that's toe flexion. So extension, the toes pull up and back towards the top of the foot. Flexion, toes move forward towards the ball of the foot. And it is beneficial, in my opinion, to move the toes separate from the ankle. So an example would be to plantar flex the ankle, but to pull the toes into extension to separate the toes from the ankle. And then you could dorsiflex the foot and then keep the ankle where it is and move the toes forward into flexion. So point, plantar flex, and extend the toes back, and then dorsiflex and flex the toes forward.